Take a look at the text on screen. This is do, a foundational word you will encounter early in your Japanese studies. It generally translates to how or in what state. Here's the beginner formula. Take a noun, add wa, and finish with do desu ka. Drop in weather to ask, how is the weather? Swap it for new job to ask, how is the new job? It's highly effective. But mastering this simple equation creates a trap. Because it works so seamlessly for simple questions, English speakers assume they can simply copy and paste their native vocabulary directly into Japanese sentences. Let's test that assumption with a new scenario. Imagine you want to ask a friend, what will you do tomorrow? Or, what do you think of this book? If you are relying on English logic, your immediate reflex is to reach for the Japanese word for what, nani or nani. Now watch this syntax animation. When we try to force that direct translation and attach nani to a verb like think or do, the sentence breaks. It results in a grammatically broken, highly unnatural phrase. This failure proves an important point. You aren't lacking vocabulary. You are missing how Japanese conceptualizes thoughts and actions differently than English. In English, we treat opinions and future plans as distinct, tangible objects. We ask what you think. In Japanese, opinions and plans are treated as a manner of acting or thinking. To bridge this gap, you have to use do as an adverb. Instead of asking for a noun, you are modifying the verb to ask in what manner an action occurs. Combine do withしますか, the verb for do. You are literally asking, in what manner will you act? Swap the verb for思いますか, meaning think, and you ask, in what manner do you think? Embracing this adverbial logic allows you to bypass clunky literal translations. You stop trying to force English rules onto Japanese vocabulary and start thinking directly in native syntax. Because do is so useful, beginners tend to overuse it. To speak naturally, we have to establish its strict grammatical boundaries by looking at two categorical rivals. First is the noun boundary. If you try to attach do directly to a noun, it bounces right off. An adverb cannot modify a noun. Instead, use the noun-specific counterpart, donna. This asks what kind of noun something is. Second is the method boundary. Do asks broadly about states or opinions, but fails entirely when asking for a physical, step-by-step process. For those situations, you need the specific counterpart, do yatte. This translates closer to by what means, and it is the exact phrase you use when asking for physical directions to a train station or the recipe for a meal. Defining these negative boundaries acts as a guardrail. It forces you to categorize your language precisely, keeping you from making obvious amateur mistakes. Once you internalize this underlying logic, do becomes a highly flexible tool. You can scale it effortlessly to match any level of social politeness. For casual conversations with friends or family, you drop the polite particles completely. The sentence strips down to just the core word, do, delivered with a rising intonation. But look at the typographic comparison on screen. If you are speaking to a boss or a client, that exact same word elevates into its highly polite equivalent, ikaga. This single conceptual shift covers your bases. It gives you the grammar needed for an informal text to a friend, all the way up to high-level professional customer service. True fluency in Japanese doesn't come from a one-for-one vocabulary exchange with English. It is achieved by adopting the grammatical perspective of the language itself, viewing the world through states, conditions, and manners.